Maomao is clever, brilliant even. The kind of girl who notices too much and says too little, who blends into the background but never stops thinking. Her intelligence isn't exaggerated or theatrical, it's practical, quiet, shaped by necessity, not spectacle. Every skill she has is grounded in something she's lived through, something she had to learn to survive. She's not clever to impress anyone, she's clever because she had to be. And that's what makes her so compelling. So many genius characters in anime feel fake, brilliant one moment, clueless the next, smart only when the plot demands it. But Maomao's brilliance isn't something she flaunts, it's something she hides, something she uses carefully, quietly, because being right in the wrong room is dangerous, especially when you're a low-born woman in a palace that thrives on silence. What is hardest about her story isn't just how sharp she is, it's how often that sharpness isolates her. You can't simply look at how intelligent Maomao is and understand her. You must see that there is a cost to that brilliance, and understand why she learned to keep that talent hidden so early. Maomao didn't learn to be brilliant through privilege. She wasn't groomed for greatness or handed the tools of power. Her education came from Lumen, her eccentric, disgraced father figure, who taught her everything he could while keeping one eye on the world that had already broken him. She read from salvaged text, memorized symptoms by candlelight, and learned to treat illness not as theory, but as something that could walk through the door at any time and take someone she knew. She grew up in the red light district, surrounded by people who couldn't afford to get sick and couldn't afford to be wrong. There was no applause for being right, no status, no safety net. If you noticed something no one else did, you kept it to yourself unless you could prove it. If someone collapsed, you acted quietly, efficiently, without hesitation. Because in a world like that, hesitation was deadly. That's what sets Maomao apart from so many other brilliant characters in anime. She doesn't intellectualize for fun. She doesn't deduce for the drama. Her instincts were carved out of necessity. Every strange side glance, every quiet pause, every time she stops to taste something or run a test, it's all protective. Her cleverness isn't a performance, it's a shield. Because most genius characters in anime aren't written like her. They are showy, overconfident, detached in a way that feels more theatrical than human. They win battles with monologues, they unveil solutions like magic tricks, and when they mess up, it rarely matters, because the story bends to their brilliance. Maomao doesn't get that luxury. There is no spotlight, no dramatic music, no one is clapping when she's right. Most of the time, no one even notices, and when they do, it's not always a good thing. Her brilliance isn't convenient, it's inconvenient. It pulls her into danger, into secrets, into problems she never has to solve. And still, she can't help but solve them. Because to her, observation isn't optional. It's a difference between safety and disaster. You see it in one of the most overlooked moments in the entire show. When Maomao returns home after her first palace assignment, hoping to disappear again into the background of brutal life, only to be dragged into a supposed double suicide. No one else questions the scene, but she does. She notices the weed stalks, the smell, the bruises, the contradictions in the story that don't add up. And once again, she solves what no one else would have even thought to ask about. But she doesn't do it for credit. There is no authority backing her, no rank, no reward. Just someone who saw the truth and couldn't walk away from it. And that's the thing, she never wanted this to define her. She's not clever because she wanted to be, she's clever because she had to be. That's where her story starts. Not with ambition, but with caution. With someone who understands that knowing too much, noticing too often, and speaking too clearly can make you a target, especially in a world that would rather keep its secrets buried. But Maomao's mind won't let her ignore the things other people pretend not to see, and the more she notices, the harder it becomes to stay invisible. And that's where things start to shift, from survival to exposure, from hiding in plain sight to being seen. Maomao doesn't chase recognition. She's not waiting for someone to pat her on the back or call her brilliant. If anything, she avoids it. The moment someone starts noticing her too much, she pulls back, fakes disinterest, changes the subject, lets them think she's just odd, or lucky, or harmless. Because in her world, being seen too clearly doesn't make you respected, it makes you a target. That is something I always found quite devastating about her. Most genius characters are rewarded for their intelligence. They get validation, admiration, some sense of belonging. But the more Maomao understands, the more distance she has to keep. Every deduction, every sharp observation pushes her further out of sync with the people around her. Because people don't like being seen, not really. They don't want to be figured out, especially not by someone like her. A low-born woman, young, unassuming, with no title, no power, and no right to speak unless spoken to. The moment she points out something others missed, she risks crossing an invisible line. And she knows it. That's why she's careful. That's why she's quiet. That's why she lets others take credit when they need to. It's not humility. It's a strategy. There's a loneliness that comes with that. A kind of invisible wall she builds around herself. Not out of arrogance, but self-preservation. She sees things that no one else is paying attention to. She connects dots that no one even knew existed. But instead of being able to share that openly, she has to carry it alone. Hold it in. Wait for the moment where saying something might do more good than harm. And even then, only just enough to fix the problem, not enough to get noticed. Because being right doesn't mean you are safe. In the palace it might mean the opposite. And what makes that even harder is how often people ignore her, or misunderstand her, or use her insight without ever thinking to ask how she got it, or what it cost her to speak up in the first place. That's one of the core tragedies of her character. Her value is obvious, but she's never treated like she belongs. Even Jinshi, who clearly respects her mind, can't quite reach her. He wants to connect, wants to understand her, but she keeps him at arm's length. Not because she doesn't notice him, but because she does. She sees his attention, sees the layers behind it, and knows exactly how dangerous it could be if she lets herself believe it's safe. He wants to be known, she's terrified of it. That's the tension at the heart of their relationship, where he's surrounded by admiration but craves something real. She's surrounded by silence and desperately trying to stay invisible. He performs, she withdraws. And yet, they keep circling each other, not out of romance, necessarily, but recognition. Because Jinshi is used to being admired and never seen, Maomao is used to seeing everything and being ignored. And in a way, that's why they matter to each other. He's drawn to her honesty, she's drawn to the fact that he doesn't look away, but neither of them know what to do with that yet. Maomao's intelligence protects her, but it also isolates her. It gives her answers, but not comfort. It lets her survive, but at the cost of connection. And the more valuable she becomes, the harder it is to know whether anyone sees her for who she is, or just what she can solve. That's what makes her story so heavy, because every time she gets closer to being seen, she has to ask herself, is it worth the risk? And before we move on, if you felt that isolation with her, if you connected with the story in a way that made you think differently, or feel something you didn't expect, I'd really love if you subscribed. This channel has never been about chasing trends. It's about slowing down, unpacking what stories like the Apothecary Diaries are really doing, and why they matter. So if that's something you want more of, you know what to do. Now, let's talk about what happens when the people around Maomao stop ignoring her brilliance, and start trying to own it. The more valuable Maomao becomes, the harder it is for her to stay hidden. At first, her insight was just a curiosity, an odd trait in a quiet servant girl. But the more problems she solves, the more people start watching. What used to be dismissed as luck becomes a reputation. Whispers follow her now. Nobles take interest. Powerful people start asking questions, and Maomao, who once slipped through the palace like a shadow, finds herself pulled into rooms where secrets live and leave marks. None of it is accidental. Her intelligence is no longer a private thing. It's become a resource, something to be used, directed, owned. People start treating her like a tool, something sharp and useful, to be picked up when needed and put away when it's not. And Maomao, who once protected herself by blending in, doesn't get to blend in anymore. That's the shift that changes everything. Because when the world finally sees her, it doesn't embrace her. It tries to contain her, to fit her into roles she never asked for. The quiet servant becomes the palace's favorite weapon. And that's the danger she's always knew was coming. Not punishment, not exile, but something worse. The slow erosion of her freedom. You can see it in where she ends up. This isn't just a girl diagnosing fevers or tracking down spoiled food, she's advising the Emperor, unraveling the secrets of the shrine used to choose heirs, digging into curses tied to the late Emperor himself, the kind of things people aren't even supposed to speak about, let alone investigate. And yet there she is, solving mysteries that could shift the balance of power in the palace, quietly uncovering truths most people wouldn't dare go near. And still, she doesn't ask for recognition, doesn't try to elevate herself. All she wants is the freedom to stay curious, to observe, to think without being owned. But that kind of freedom doesn't exist here. Not when brilliance makes you indispensable. And slowly, you start to see the toll it takes. Not in outbursts, not in breakdowns, but in the way she recoils when praised, in the way she talks to herself instead of trusting others, in the way she keeps her thoughts guarded, even when she is surrounded by people who claim to rely on her. Because being seen doesn't always feel like being known. It's one thing to be brilliant. It's another to be brilliant in a place that treats that brilliance like property. Maomao knows what happens when people decide you are special. They stop letting you be anything else. You become the version of yourself they find the most useful. And if you resist, the walls start closing in. That's what makes her story so quietly tragic. Not that she's lonely, not that she's brilliant, but that somewhere deep down, she doesn't believe she's allowed to want more than survival. She doesn't want to be a heroine. She doesn't want to be admired. She just wants space to think, to breathe, to not be needed all the time. But brilliance is a spotlight that doesn't turn off. And once the world starts depending on you, it rarely asks what you need in return. So she keeps moving forward, doing what she's best at, and what they won't let her stop doing, keeping her real thoughts tucked just out of reach. Not because she's cold, but because she knows what it costs to be seen. And if you want to understand how someone like Jinshi fits into that story, how his power isolates him the same way her mind does, then the next video is already waiting for you. Thanks for watching, like, subscribe, goodbye.